Hello and welcome back to Fluttering Butterflies. My name is Michelle and I've decided to do another poetry roundup. I was considering not doing another poetry roundup because the views of my previous poetry roundups have been quite small in comparison to other videos, but I decided that I enjoy filming these so much that I will continue regardless. So today I'm going to do a really small poetry roundup of 3 poetry collections that I've been reading recently. Alright, so the first book I wanted to talk to you about today is this one. It's Staying Alive, Real Poems for Unreal Times, edited by Astley, and I have mentioned this poetry collection previously on this channel. I had read the 100 essential poems from the trilogy. This is the first in a trilogy of books. They're supposed to be like life-affirming poems to get you through unreal times. And I've had this book on my shelf for absolutely ages. A friend bought it for me for my birthday years ago. I was really excited to read it at the time, but I wasn't really into poetry then as I am now. So I pretty much stayed on the shelf for the right time, and I think that while I did enjoy it, because I'd read the essential poems, I felt like that took something away from this collection. So this collection itself is split into several different parts: Body and Soul, Roads and Journeys, Dead or Alive, Bittersweet, Growing Up, Man and Beast, In and Out of Love, My People, War and Peace, Disappearing Acts, Me, the Earth and the Universe, and The Art of Poetry. And I did like them kind of grouped together in those ways. Just like with the Essential Poetry collection, we have, like on this page, there are 4 different poems all on the same page. I probably would have liked there to be more separation between the poems so that each of the poems had their own sort of space and I could just focus on that particular one. But having all of the poetry on the same page, I was kind of looking ahead, you know, what's next? Is it going to be really long? Is it going to be really short? Do I recognize the other poems on the page? Rather than focusing on that one specific poem at a time. I did really enjoy this. Again, I think collections of poetry like this are probably for people getting into poetry to try to test the waters a little bit with the poetry, and in that aspect I really enjoyed it. There are definitely some poems. There were quite a few poets in this collection that I'd never heard of. There were definitely poems in here that hit me emotionally, and there are definitely poets that I'd like to read more of based on some of the poetry in here. So I did really enjoy this book. It's kind of long, and I think I couldn't really tell if I was getting slightly bored towards the end of the book or if it was just me heading into a reading slump, but I did really enjoy this, and I do have the other 2 books in the trilogy waiting for me soon. So hopefully my thoughts on the other 2 books in the trilogy will be a little bit more in-depth. The next book that I picked up was this one. It's called Islamic Mystical Poetry, Sufi Verse from the Early Mystics to Rumi. When I first started becoming interested in poetry, I did ask for several recommendations, and one particular friend mentioned Rumi to me, and I had read some of Rumi's poetry online using those free poetry websites, but I really wanted something a little bit more in depth. I did want a collection. I did not want to start reading collections of poetry all by the same author, but I came across this one, and what I liked about it is that it's an area of poetry that I'd not really come across before. I didn't know very much about, and it sort of gives me a glimpse into Islamic mystical poetry. What I loved so much about this book in particular is the editor of the book, Mahmoud Jamal. who also translated some of the poetry here, gives a great introduction into what Islamic mystical poetry is, what Sufi verse is. It gives a great introduction into the sort of imagery that is used within Islamic mystical verse. And then what he's done is collected loads and loads and loads of different Sufi poems together, and he grouped them in chronological order. And for each poet, he's given this great little biography at the start, introducing the new poet, giving the dates of birth and death, and also some of the achievements and what these poets are known for. I found it really, really interesting. I found that the farther back it went, I really enjoyed that more than the more modern poetry. But definitely three of the poets from this collection really stuck out for me, and I really want to read more of them. The first is Mansur Halaj, and I did post-it note one particular poem that just got to me so much when I originally read it, and it's called You Went Away But Remained in Me. I also really enjoyed Rumi's poetry and also Kabir. So honestly, I was absolutely fascinated reading this collection, and it was a kind of a whim purchase when I picked it up, but I'm really glad that I did. The third and final collection that I wanted to talk to you about today is this one, Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. I think I was browsing the internet, clicking between links from Facebook, I believe. Not entirely sure what I was doing clicking it. I had no goal or purpose, but somehow I managed to click through and find an article about this collection of poetry. And from that, I clicked over to Rupi Kaur's Instagram page, where she shares some of her poetry and these cute little line drawings, and I spent a good half an hour, 45 minutes trawling through her Instagram photos, reading the poetry, and it was just so very emotional that I had to immediately go out and buy her book. It's quite a slim book. I read it in one sitting and I loved every second of it. There's so much in this book about suffering, and she's gone through some really horrible things, and it's about love and tragedy, but it's also quite a hopeful collection of poetry. There was just something so personal and intimate about Rupi Kaur's poetry, and it really grabbed me as I was reading it. I absolutely adored it. So those are the three books of poetry that I've been reading recently. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have any poetry recommendations. I'd love to hear from you. See you next time.